Forgive me because I was born in 1975, so I'm 48 years old. And so I know that there is a bit of an age gap, and so the music that I listen to, you may not listen to, but we're in the great state of Georgia, and we're in the beautiful city of Atlanta, so everyone knows who Usher is, right? So if I'm gonna tell it, then we don't know Usher? I know. You all don't listen to Usher?
They
Wait a minute, so, all right. If I have to tell it, then I have to what? Then I have to tell it all. I'm 48 years old. I'll be 49 in October. At 39, I was indicted and I went to prison. So if I'm going to tell it, I may as well tell it all. I don't just want to say that I graduated from Spelman College. I don't just want to say that I am a woman of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I don't want to say that right now I probably earn about $500,000 a year. But if I must tell it, I may as well tell it all. If I tell it, then I have to tell you that by age 4, I had been molested by many men. And after that, I had mommy and daddy issues. My mother, the first to graduate from high school, the first to go to college, but the first to remind me that she really didn't want me. If I have to tell it, then I may as well tell all of it. My mother was an educator. My father wanted to be a drug dealer. I am from Detroit, Michigan. I had to make a decision every day of my life on what side of the road I would walk. So in telling it all, by age 12, I was in high school. By 16, I was at Spelman College in the AUC. But there was so much trauma. There was so much emotional trauma. There was so much physical trauma. Because I grew up when you got chastised, you would get chastised with an extension cord. You know, black folk, at least some of them didn't believe that that was abuse. It was rooted in correction. And oftentimes people are easy to give you a punishment when they haven't protected you. So if I'm going to tell it, I may as well tell it all. At 16, I'm at Spelman College. My mother dropped me off and she left. So I had no idea about how I would address my financial aid. I had no idea about how I would address my housing. I had no idea about how, at 16 years old, being at one of the greatest colleges on earth, how I would navigate that process. And that experience, like every other experience, left me angry. And I wore my dissatisfaction on my face. I had trauma. I had wounds in the way. But I finished in 4 years. And June 1st, 1996, working at this place called Kentucky Fried Chicken in Riverdale, Georgia, off Highway 85. I had already graduated from Spelman, and I decided I'm not going to do anything with my education. I'm not going to do anything with the degree that I have and my certification to teach. I'm just going to go and continue to work the ladder, and I'm going to work at Kentucky Fried Chicken. And when I did that, God said, no, that's not the plan that I have for you. And so on June 1st, 1996, it's significant about June 1, but on June 1st, 1996, I would get burned working at Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I would get burned 15% of my body. And I would almost die. And one would think that when you have a near-death experience, that would be enough to have you to change your mind. But if I'm going to tell it, I'm going to tell it all. When I got burned, they called my mom and said, she's been in an accident and you need to come. And my mom said, well, I'm a senior advisor. I'm a school teacher, and it's prom tonight. And I've created these experiences for my seniors. And so I can't come to Atlanta because I'm in Detroit and prom is tonight. And I have so many seniors that's going to be waiting and looking for me to show up for them. So I can't show up for Casey. I have to go to work. And so my mom did not come. I was already angry. I think that made me even more angry. So I found myself in the hospital for 2 months. Finally, my mom had to do something. I was underage. She chartered a plane. It took me from Southern Regional Hospital to Detroit, where I was in the burn unit for 2 months. And I tried to get better. And then getting better, I decided that I was going to get in grad school. I decided that I was going to start teaching. I left one bad boy for another bad boy. There's a pattern. And this bad boy was for real a bad boy. He had already been locked up for drugs. Got his GED while in county jail. He was a bad boy. He was cute. How many of you all have looked on the outside at someone without safely searching who they were on the inside? And so it's this thing that say, the old folks used to say that forbidden fruit tastes the best. And so I knew it was bad when I walked into it. I knew it was bad when I saw it. But I had so much stuff that was unresolved that I didn't want to touch, that I ended up in this relationship with this guy. So if I'm going to tell it, I got to tell it all. So at 20 years old, I'm a teacher. I'm in a relationship because I don't want to live with my mother and my father. And teaching wasn't paying all that much. This boy had a house. Notice I called him a boy. This boy had a house. And so, because I was angry, because I didn't want to live with my mother and my stepfather, I decided that I was going to go and live with this boy. And from that place is where the abuse began. That place is where the slaps began. That place is where getting pulled and thrown through glass windows began. That place is where the lies began, because I can't go to work and say I'm being beaten at home. So I have to say that I had an accident. The things that you see on the movies, those things really happen in our mind when we're trying to avoid a truth that we don't want to reveal. Besides that, my image in the workplace just didn't align with my reality at home. So it was just some stuff that I compartmentalized and I didn't have to deal with. So the black eyes is where I learned how to wear MAC. And the stitches is where I learned to come up with these fanciful stories about my accidents. If I'm going to tell it, I may as well tell it all. I threw myself into my work. And I matriculated very fast in the world of education. I went from being a substitute teacher to a contract teacher, which means I was certified. I became a department head, and I became an assistant principal, all within the first 10 years of my profession. So by 30, I was making now 6 figures. But by 30, I was a mother to a son. I had a husband that was beating me, and I was known as a turnaround specialist. I could go and turn everything else around except for the things that were in my life. I didn't deal with the things that were in my life. I dealt with my work. So a lot of times when we're addressing issues in our workplace and we're throwing ourselves into being busy, it is something that we're doing because we really don't want to address what's going on inside. I got a divorce. I did get a divorce, but there were some things about me. There were some proclivities about me. There were some demons about me that started to surface and show up in other forms of behavior. I was a professional. I was a sorority girl. I was a Spelman woman. I wore Mickey Moto pearls. I drove a very nice vehicle. I made sure I had a Brooks Brothers suit on when I went to work. But I also was sexually promiscuous, which means that when I had sex with men, it was done so without any real attachment. I did it with several of them, and I left. I had things. If I'm going to tell it, I may as well tell it all. I was a people pleaser. I had a God complex. I figured if I could help you, then I wouldn't have to address the things that were going on inside of me. And lo and behold, I began to make choices that really cost me my career. So, 2014, I got indicted. My home was raided. Had 15 police cars. You think that they showed up at Sean Puffy Combs' house. You should have seen how they showed up at my home. And I went to prison for 10 months. And all of the so-called friends that I thought I had, they were gone. All of the many times that my phone rang, it never rang anymore. I went to court June 1st. To be sentenced, my mother and my father was not there. And so in prison, I was forced to do some work. I was forced to heal. I was forced to be honest. It was in that setting, at 39 years old, that I was finally able to say, I was molested by many men before I turned 40. Mom, I felt abandoned. Daddy, I felt like you didn't protect me. Ex-husband, you hurt me. Casey, you're beautiful. Why can't you see that you are? I couldn't heal what I would not reveal. And sometimes, ladies, we come onto these campuses and we become a part of the chosen few. But the realities are, we're no different than any other woman that is brown or black that's not in college. They suffer the same things that we suffer. Many of them, like me, or maybe some of you, have been molested. I like to call the word. Many of them, like me, and maybe some of you, have suffered from physical abuse by your parents. Like me, and maybe some of you have had a spouse or a significant other or somebody that you like or you got into a relationship that abused you. If they didn't abuse you physically, they abused you emotionally. We're all in this fight of figuring it out together. And we can't pretend and dress up our misery. I thought that if I became the principal, the youngest principal in the city of Detroit, making $140,000 a year at the time, I thought it was pretty good. I could raise my son. I could go and do all of the things. I could see all of the places. I could buy all of the things I wanted. I could live in the house that I wanted to live in. I thought that if I dressed it up, I thought that if I joined some more boards, I thought that if I continued to do the work, I thought that if I got more certificates, I thought that if I continued my education, I thought that if I kept you one arm's length from me, you wouldn't see that I was hurting. But the truth is, every car will run out of gas if you don't service it. And me being indicted and me going to prison was me running out of gas. And so in that place, it didn't matter that I was a Spelman woman. I wouldn't dare say that I was an AKA. I wouldn't even dare say that I was a principal. But I was. But just as I was this, I was that. I was a person who was convicted of taking a bribe and tax evasion. I was a person who had been molested by many men before age 4. Sometimes when you're peeling back the layers of the onion of your life and your stuff, you're gonna cry. And I cried. I took my soul to the laundromat. And when I really began to peel back that layer, and I really began to reveal all of the things, I saw that trauma whether emotional or physical. It happened for me in an insidious kind of way, which means that unless you really knew me up close and personal, unless you were reading my diary, you would not have known all of the things. At work, I carried a baseball bat. I was tough. I was like Joe Clark, y'all. I was tough, though. As a matter of fact, how many of you know who the rapper 4-2 Doug is? I was 4-2 Doug's principal.
Oh, wow.
So when Doug was upstairs gambling in the bathroom, and I had my security to bring him down to me, I said, go home for 10 days. And I sent him home. Watch this. Because I was tough. And I never stopped being angry. So his offense was enough for me to not give him the grace that I needed somebody to give to me. And I suspended him for 10 days. And instead of him going home, he went to a nearby suburb and he carjacked 2 white women. And I don't know if you really have ever seen 4-2 Doug. We're the same size.
I was going to ask you that.
And so they were looking for a 12-year-old, but he was 15. Long story short, there was a 3 police municipality look for him. It was the Harper Woods Police, which was the suburbs. It was the City of Detroit Police Department. And it was the local Detroit Public Schools Police Department, all looking for this 15-year-old who was on the run. And so in my relationship with my students and their families, it had been determined that I was going to turn him in. And so we connected after some days, and we went to the police department, where they said that he was going to only serve juvenile time. But they put him in prison for 6 years. And I remember when some of you have followed the story, when he got in trouble again here. And I flew down and went to court with him. He said, my principal is here. He looked back, he said, and I just wanted her to know that that was one of the worst days of my life. Because when she sent me home, it changed the trajectory of my life forever. And so at that moment, I cried in that courtroom. Because the reality was, it wasn't that what he had done was so dire. It wasn't so wrong. It wasn't such an egregious act upon the school system. I wasn't healed. You know how often you encounter someone and their response to you is really based off of the fact that they're not healed? Do you know how often some of you have responded to someone? You've been a mean girl, been in a clique, you were just nasty, when really it wasn't about them. It was because you were not healed. And so in that moment, I thought about, what could I have done differently with this young man? I could have talked to him. I could have done the same thing with him that I needed someone to do with me. Why am I telling you this? Sometimes, if we're not careful, we will become the very thing that we dislike. I wasn't approachable. I was so principled. I had no wiggle room. But really, I was just hurt and I was angry. Fast forward. I do the work. I do the painful work of healing, of being honest, of learning how to be still. We live in this fast-paced world where we're constantly moving. I was left to be by myself. And all of the things, these are not the things that happened to me. These were the things that I did. Came to me. And for each one, I had to ask for forgiveness. For each one, then for the things that happened to me, forgive. Because what I realized is that I was just a powder keg of pain. And I didn't know what joy or happiness was. I was angry, but I was depressed. I was sad, and I didn't really know what love was. So, when I dropped my son off at Morehouse College in 2016, I went and took myself to prison. And if for no one else but for my son, who had never been in trouble one day in his life, and both of his parents are felons, who's been with the same girl since the 9th grade. He went to Morehouse, she went to Clark. He's a police officer, she's an FBI agent. If I didn't have the will to do it for anyone else, I had to do it for my son. I'm saying that to you because there are souls that cannot come here without your support. There are souls that are depending on you to get it right. And so we have to be able to start to work through the things. And since I'm going to tell it, I got to tell it all. I came home, clearly. And when I came home, there was a riot and a massacre at a prison in Bishopville, South Carolina, where 9 people were killed. And I got a call that said, hey, are you the principal that used to have the baseball bat? And I said, yes. They said, we want you to come. We got an issue inside of the prison. Now, mind you, I'm feeling somewhat institutionalized because I had already been in trouble, but they called me. I said, okay. So I went. And I mean, I went. I was inside of the prison. I was with the guys. I'm there. And then I get a call from Richmond, Virginia that said, hey, are you the one who used to carry the baseball bat? I said, yes. They said, we got a jail here that we want you to come and do some work in. And we're going to pay you 6 figures, and you set your own hours. Watch this. So I thought God was trying to test me. And I said, you're going to pay me to come? They said, yeah, we'll pay you 6 figures to come. And you set your own hours. I said, well, I can only do 4 days a week. They said, okay. I said, I meant 3. They said, okay. I said, well, I can only do like 5 hours or 6 a week. They said, okay. I said, I mean, I can do about 4. They said, okay, whatever you can do. You got to ask for the thing. And so to fly in on a Monday, to take a 10:20 flight, get in at 11, get to the jail at 1 o'clock, I would work from 1 until 3. And then on Tuesday, I would get up and I would see a group from 9 until 10. And then on Wednesday, I would go in at 9 o'clock until 10 o'clock, and then by 12 o'clock, I'm back on the plane to Detroit. And I'm done. It's what, 4 or 5 hours? $10,000 a month.
They pay for your flights?
No, I have to incur my own flight. I wish. I should have threw that in like, well, you got to get me here. The other part to that is I had a pastor who, when everybody else ran from me, ran to me. And he said, I want you to come on and I want you to start working with me. I know you say you're a turnaround specialist, and I know you've worked in the schools, but this is what the scenario looks like. And I became his chief operations officer. And his operating budget went from $180,000. He said, I can't pay you much right now. But if you come, we're going to be all right. We went from $180,000 in 2019 to $6.8 million today. I'm telling you this because of a few reasons. One, your gifts will make room for you. Two, and I don't mean, y'all did pray, so I can talk about God in here. Y'all prayed, I saw you pray, I got it on camera. Two is that when you can't get the hand of God to move in your prayer, you have to trust his character. You have to trust that the plans that God has for you are really the plans not to hurt you. I thought I was mad at God. Forget him being mad at me. I was mad at him. Because sometimes when you get in trouble and you get mad with God, you don't want to think about the stuff that you did. That's that accountability piece. Then you become the victim. I went all the way back, like, God, I know I ain't about to go to prison. This happened to me when I was 3. I went through all of this abuse. I did A, B, C, D, and God, I blah, 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 blah. And I thought I didn't hear him. But he was loud and present the whole time. He already had established that I would become a violence interrupter in the prisons. And he gave me an experience that allowed me to be the principal in the prison. So that the experience that I had would make me a one-on-one. I got to humble you first. So that when you get back together, you'll seek me. And I will tell you, it is true like it is written. If you seek ye first the kingdom of God, everything else that you want, everything else that you want will be added. I know it to be certain. And so while I did not give you the scientific rudimentary talk about what it means to heal from the things that you must reveal, I gave you my life story. Because each one of us is Grand Canyon. What worked for her, it may not work for her, it may not work for her. We all are in this journey, though, together. Because the one thing that is, in fact, true is that you have to reveal first. You have to be honest first with the things in order for you to effectively peel back that onion. God says, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Not that you might be hurt and your feelings might be hurt and that you might not be able to heal. So when you can't really feel the true presence of God, you have to trust his character. And his character is faultless. Does that make sense? Yeah. Questions? Comments? I got it, girl. I got it. Black women, most often we're dying and we don't know it. We have the fibroids. We have the high blood pressure. We have the diabetes. Because we are taught, watch this, watch what trauma and stresses of being female and black does to us. We're often taught to take it all in. So we take it all in, and we never get permission to exhale. So if you ever Google how to address high blood pressure, how to address anxiety, it all starts with the breath. They tell you meditate. And all of the science says you have to exhale 2 times as much as you inhale. That's why you got anxiety. That's why you can't breathe. That's why you have panic attacks. That's why you have the high blood pressure. That's why the fibroids show up. And they show up in us and they don't show up in nobody else. Science says that trauma lasts for 7 generations. And I thought about it. I was born in 1975. My mother was born in 1953. My grandmother, a teen mother, was born and killed a person, 1935. Her mother was born in 1919. Her mother was born in 1900. Her mother she started having children late. So she was born in 1870. And then her mother was born somewhere past 1865 when slavery ended. So if I'm going to tell it, I may as well tell it all. And in telling it all, the generational curses end with me. The cycles end with me. The troubles, inside and outside of the law, ends with me. So it's only befitting that my son is a police officer, and a black man, and a captain, and a Morehouse man, and a for real daddy that's present. He don't just show up sometime to pick up the baby. The baby lives with him. It ends with me. And it took for me to go down before I could come up. And since I've done the work, and now I know how to look to the hills, which cometh my help, and my help comes from God. Since I'm up, what Cardi B said, it's up. Which means it's what? It's stuck. The success is stuck. The joy is stuck. The healing is stuck. The honesty is stuck. The opportunities is stuck. The blessings, they're stuck. The grace is stuck. The mercy is stuck. The happiness is stuck. The success, it's stuck. The prosperity, it's stuck. Because I'm up. But I would have never gotten to this place until I had gotten put in a place where I could truly heal from the things that all of those decades I would not review. That's it.